let's go ahead and get started with temple service. Alright, and just as it says there, everyone is welcome and loved here. Now we're going to go ahead and get started with the Sambujo chant. Sambujo. We respectfully welcome Amida Buddha to our temple as we scatter flowers of joy. We respectfully welcome the Buddhas of all times and places to our temple as we scatter flowers of joy. Alright, and now we will recite the 6 paramitas. Giving. May I be generous and helpful. Guidance. May I be guided by the Buddhist precepts. Tolerance. May I regard the mistakes of others with sympathy. Perseverance. May I do my best in all things. Meditation. May I reflect deeply on my life through the Buddha's teachings. Insight. May I understand the meaning of Namo Amida Butsu. And let's finish this off with the Bodhisattva vows. The many beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly. I vow to abandon them. Dharma gates are countless. I vow to rake to them. Buddha's way is unsurpassed. I vow to embody it fully. Alright? Now this, just for full transparency, this phone right here is on about 9% battery, so I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can. So that I can finish it up. The end of suffering. Letting go and liberation. So I'm going to start off with the Sambujo chant Triple Refuge. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Today we enter the third noble truth, Nirodha, the end of suffering. The Buddha taught that liberation is not a dream. It is real, and it begins within. We've all experienced the clenching that comes from wanting things to be different. Wanting more pleasure, less pain. But true peace is not about achieving, it's about releasing. Nirodha invites us to soften the grip. When we stop chasing what we crave and stop resisting what is, we find a sacred stillness. That stillness has always been there. It's just been covered by fear, stories, and old attachments. This isn't about denying grief or numbing reality. It's about seeing clearly that nothing we grasp ever lasts, and still choosing peace anyway. Each time we let go of a story, a need to control, a false identity, we come home to ourselves. Letting go is not giving up, it's opening up. It's surrendering to the wisdom of this moment. And in that surrender, the heart becomes light again. Alright? So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and read it. This is a bit out of order, but
I want to thank everybody for coming. This means a lot to me, and I'm doing what I'm very passionate about, which is helping and healing people and helping people be guided back to their own personal truth and finding joy and happiness in life now. So there are ways of thinking, and just really simple enlightenment is something that's a lifelong process, and it continually happens.
All right. And before we get into this, I'm going to review some breath work with you guys. Now, usually we just do the infinity breath, but we're going to add on a little something else in addition to that. So, for those who don't know the infinity breath, you start out by breathing all that stale air out, all that stale energy, all that, all that you've been holding with you for this week, for this month, for however long. And that forms the first bottom loop. And then you hold in your center. And then you breathe in that bright, vibrant creator light, and then you hold again in your center, and then you circulate that energy through your body. Now, something else you might do as you do this is a 4-4-6 breath. And what that is when you inhale, you think you're inhaling calm, and 2, 3, 4, it's 4 seconds. And then you hold 2, 3, 4, and then you exhale and release 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So inhale 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, exhale 4 seconds. Calm, hold, release. And now I'm going to go ahead and go around and help you. First, I'm going to go ahead and play this meditation chant before we start with our meditation.
Namaste. So I want to share something with you that can help you during meditations, breath work, mindfulness, just to still your mind, quiet yourself, and allow more access to hear your higher self. Yogena Chitasha Bodhenu Vatra Travashati Kena Yopa Purat Dim Rabadam Bodhitam Patanjaliam.
Now we're going to go ahead and help remove any blockages. So just go ahead and bring to your mind any blockages, anything that's been holding you back, anything you've been struggling with. And we're going to go around and we're going to help with that. As it's going in the background here. Alright. start our meditation. So remember that breath work, that infinity breath, that inward breath, 2, 3, 4, calm, hold, 2, 3, 4, and then release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I want you to just feel your connection with the earth. Your connection with all that is. You feel grounded in this moment. And as you do, as you breathe, repeat inwardly, I let go, I soften, I return to peace. And just feel the energy come up slowly through you, from the earth, moving up your legs, up to your root chakra, and then through your sacral, your solar plexus, then your heart, your throat, up to your third eye, and finally making its way up through your crown chakra, creating that circuit with all that is, and just feel that connection. And then whenever you feel ready, you can just sort of come back, open up your eyes, and feel refreshed. As a closing reflection, freedom is not found in the outside world. It is a flame that burns within us, steady and bright. Today, we remembered that suffering ends when we stop clinging and start trusting. All right. And go ahead and move on to the Reiki healing of the mind this week. So for today's Reiki healing of the mind, we have be present. The present moment is the one you are living now, the only moment over which you have any control. So to be present is to be alive and feel alive right now, this very minute. And I'll go ahead and show you all it. All right. Finally, before we send you off, we're going to give you a little bit of homework and integration. First off, there's a journaling prompt. Where in your life are you holding on tightly? What would it mean to soften your grip? Now, second, we've got some practice for you to do. Each evening, place your hand on your heart and say, I am enough. I release what no longer serves me. And then third, as an optional creative exercise, you may write a letter to someone you're ready to release. A thought, fear, or something that you're ready to release. A thought, fear, or pattern, and ceremonially burn or bury it. You may write it to someone or something, but it is a good way to achieve that release. As a final blessing, beloveds, you are the flame of peace and the wave of release. Let the path of letting go guide you home. May your week be filled with softness, courage, and light. And as I send you off, I'll go ahead and show you what we have going on here at Lotus Flower. Alright, thank you all for joining us. We're going to be moving on to our discussion podcast next. So we're just going to move some things around real quick and get prepared for that. If you want to join in and listen to the podcast afterwards, feel free to continue listening. Or if you want to stop off here, I wish you a good week. And yeah, namaste to you all. Alright, here we go. Make sure we get both of us in the frame. Alright. Let's give it a bit of a listen. See how it sounds. Hello? Yep. Alright, it's working. Okay. Let's turn down the echo a bit. Alright. So, Miguel, do you have anything to say about the service?
Well, I think suffering is more of a journey than the destination. You know, like a lot of times, you know, we think to ourselves, oh, I'm suffering, I can't wait for the suffering to end. But in my personal experience, suffering is what's helped me really build a lot of my character.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, there's a lot of wisdom in suffering. And so, you know, but if you just go from the start to the finish and you don't focus on, you know, why I'm suffering and what can I learn from this, how can I make things better, you know, then it's like the saying goes, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so, you know, I wholeheartedly believe that suffering definitely is a motivating factor for us to do better in our life and to be better in our life. Because, I mean, you know, you could always just be content with what you have and, you know, take solace in that, you know, and there's nothing really wrong with that. But, you know, it takes a lot of discipline to to take a step above, rather than just, okay, accepting, hey, I did something bad, or I'm thinking in the wrong way, and it's all it's ever going to be. Sometimes it really takes a lot of motivation and discipline to get to a higher state of mind where now, okay, well, this old thing that used to cause me suffering doesn't cause me suffering anymore.
Right.
And now I have better character because of it.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like I know someone, for example, who, when he suffers enough, he shuts down. It doesn't function motivationally for him. He wants it to be over. He feels like he's done. He's out of it. Now, of course, he gets in this kind of state and eventually gets out of that funk. But, in order to be able to release suffering when it gets to be too much, I feel like it is important to, release those sorts of attachments we have to the need for success all the time, or for things to go the way that we expect them to. A lot of times we can put a lot of pressure on our path that it needs to be perfect. It needs to go right. This needs to work out for me, or else it's done. It's not good enough, or I've lost all this progress I've made. But really, once you can let go of all of those expectations, all of those needs for things to be exact, to be perfect, to be to a certain standard, you can really find a greater peace within yourself.
Yeah, and it's when you're in that state of agony, it just feels like time drags on, and Albert Einstein once said, time is relative. If you put your hand on the stove for a minute, it's going to feel like an hour. And that's how a lot of times, we feel when we're in a bad situation. Oh, I might be unemployed, or I'm, just agonizing over just something that's not going my way, and then it just feels like forever and a day, and whatnot. And so, but sometimes, all it takes is for us to take our hand off the stove to realize, sometimes it's okay to walk away from a situation if it's just causing us unnecessary suffering. Or there's some things we can't control, and, we kind of just have to accept it and just go with the flow. But I feel like more often than not, though, a lot of our suffering can be turned around for the better.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like, that's something that we do develop towards, right? I feel like that is kind of, there are a lot of people who they suffer and then they give up, or they suffer and then they get upset at themselves, or they get upset at the world, or they feel like they're being picked on, But to be able to take things and to be like, yeah, I'm suffering, but I won't always be, there will be an end to this. And this is for a reason. This is driving me forwards. This is motivation for me. That is, I feel like a higher state of mind, a higher state of thinking, to be able to take something that is negative and to propel yourself forward with it, rather than letting it hold you back or letting it crush you.
Yeah, sometimes, suffering is necessary, and if you give up, then, then you basically, you stay stagnant in that suffering and you just accept it for what it is, and whatnot. But, sometimes, like, for example, like in the work environment, you got to start on the bottom before you can get to the top. And so, you're going to have to slog doing menial labor with no pay. But if you keep, persisting in the suffering of your menial job, then you'll get in a position of, where you can make more money and your job's easier. Or, even like, developing friendships and relationships. You might have a certain yearning to be friends with somebody that you might see as someone that you relate with and whatnot, and I mean everyone's gonna have arguments or whatever, and so the moment an argument happens, you decide, oh, I don't want to be his friend anymore. Just kind of seems silly because just simply because the fact that it caused you any suffering. But if in the long run, if you decide, okay, I'm just gonna forgive the person, forget that what they did might have hurt me or whatever, then in the long run, it'll be much better fulfillment because you've established a long-lasting friendship that that stood the test of time, even despite the suffering you might go through. So a lot of times, or even like something so silly as like just waiting for the right sale at the store. You might be like, oh, I really want to get this, but it's so expensive.
Hello, welcome in.
And so
We're just doing our discussion after service, so don't mind us.
And so, you might tell yourself, well, I really want it, or you can wait, and it might go on sale, and now you spent less, and so you might have more money for other things that you can use it for. So just, a lot of it has to do with patience, perseverance, and endurance.
Right. Yeah, and really, it goes back to we are the stories we tell ourselves, right? If we continually tell ourselves, I can't do it, I can't move forward, I can't, I can't, right? Then of course we can't, of course we're stuck. If we keep telling ourselves that this is always the way it will be, then this is always the way it will be. If we tell ourselves that instead we are moving towards our goal, that we are making progress, that we are growing as people, that we are, and especially when we make our goal specific, right? And we restate that, that is happening, that progress is being made. That is one way that we can really let go of all of this suffering that we feel in the process, because we know that, it's just a stepping stone. It's not something that is a roadblock. It's not something that's going to be there forever. It's not the end of the road, No matter how far down you may be, no matter how dark things may appear for you, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. There is always room to move up, even just incrementally, and it all starts with having that kind of mindset change, of changing the way you think, so that you know that everything that you do, it's not for nothing. That you are making a difference, that you are making a change in yourself and others around you, that you are making progress towards what it is you want most. And, that is something to also keep in mind. Be sure of what you want, that it's what you really want. And that's not something that you've just been told that you want. Or that, you feel like, oh, well, famous people have it so easy. Or, rich people have it so easy. I want what they have. But you don't know what they have, You don't know what it's like to be in that position. So it's important to recognize, what it is that you truly want for yourself. And then to, have that mindset of, I'm becoming that. That no matter what happens, that is my trajectory. That is that is where I'm heading towards.
Now, sometimes, actually a lot of times, we need the help of others to help us get out of the funk of suffering, because humans are social creatures and we're all naturally inclined to love. And so, a lot of times, we need the encouragement of others, or the kindness of others and the love of others,
right,
to help us get out of that suffering, because as humans, we can't know everything, we can't do everything. So if, I'm struggling with something and that struggle is causing me suffering, and there's somebody who can help me out, then, that small little act of kindness has relieved me of my suffering.
Right.
Or if, say, there's something I don't know and it's bothering me and somebody knows it's bothering me, they might, sit down with me and kind of have a discussion about it, kind of give me their bit of wisdom, or tell me how, teach me something new that where I can learn to better my mind, to help me get in a better state of mind, to, get out of the suffering that is involved with my state of mind, or just not knowing something and, not knowing how to do it. So, it's definitely, there's a lot to it with, just social interactions with people, because
right,
if you don't, because if you know that somebody's suffering and you don't even make an effort to try to help them out, now you're complicit in their suffering, because you're not at least even bothering to help the person out when you know they need it most.
Right. And something else I would say is that, even if you feel like you're alone, whether it's spiritually or, just familially, or even just acquaintances, it's something to keep in mind that you're never truly alone. If nothing else, the connection between all of us as human beings that we share, there is always something that ties you to other people around you. And so you're never really truly alone in anything. And that can be a very uplifting mindset to have. Just to know that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone in it. And also, like I said earlier, that you have all the tools that you need at your disposal for where you are at this point in time. That there is never a situation that comes to you which you are not equipped for in some way, shape, or form. And when all else fails, just know that tomorrow is another day. When things seem bleak today, just remember there's always tomorrow. There's always more, much more time ahead of you. Even if something awful happens, it's important to keep in mind that that awful thing is not your forever, or it doesn't have to be. You can always take action. You can always do what you can. And even just living, saying that I did everything I could, I think that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, and sometimes, a lot of times, really, we suffer and we don't know what to do, and we get stuck. And a lot of times, it's good to be able to seek the spiritual realm for guidance. Because when you meditate and pray, you look for these signs that of guidance and wisdom, beyond what other human beings may or may not be able to help you with, or just spiritual people who can teach you things beyond your understanding. And because we're all connected spiritually, and so it's one of those things where if that your suffering can in itself have a rippling effect on other people, whether you realize it or not, because your negative attitude and your self-deprecating, self-hating, low self-esteem attitude will bring a negative aura and a negative vibe that will rub off on people. And so subconsciously, you might not realize it if this guy's grumpy and now all of a sudden you're feeling grumpy. That's because, he's just rubbing off on you because he's bringing his bad mood and causing you suffering because he's suffering. It's all contagious.
Right.
If you have a good spirit about you and you're positive, that rubs off too.
Yeah.
And so that has a lot to do with it. Just your mindset and
you definitely have a lot of influence on your environment.
Right. And just depending on how far you're willing to dedicate yourself to your spiritual well-being has an immense impact on your happiness and the happiness of others, and it's hard. It really is hard because it's something that you have to have a lot of discipline, because it's not something that you can physically see most of the time, but you see the impact, and you might see the little messages or the little signs that kind of point you towards, a certain thing, or, feeling a certain way, a certain action, or talking to a certain person, or whatever, And so a lot of times, the spirit will lead you in ways that you don't understand, other than the fact that, I'm being led to do this. I'm being led to say this.
Right.
I'm being led to go here. And, and oftentimes you realize, it's, it led me to something positive that helped relieve my suffering, or helped somebody else and their suffering.
Right.
So it's spiritual well-being has a huge impact on your suffering.
Yeah. And there's a reason why they call it mental, spiritual, physical health. It is a form of health. It is a form of well-being that needs to be looked after. Is there anything that you have been experiencing this week in life or have been integrating or whatever that you want to talk about now?
Well, I mean, just not particularly, but I mean, I'm struggling, just financially struggling, but but it's one of those things where, just being grateful for the little things, being grateful for the things that you barely have, puts you in a state of mind that you can be happy with the little, and that'll only make you happier if you do get more.
Right. Gratitude, not only that, is also just like such a great manifesting power. To be grateful for things, even for things that haven't happened yet. That's part of what manifestation is in the first place. Like, to be grateful for what has not yet come. But, to really have faith in that outcome to the point where you're grateful that it's happened. Now, for me, this week, I feel like, I've come to a lot more peace with chaotic situations. I've had some things that like didn't quite turn out the way I expected them to, and I kind of had to come to grips with like, sometimes that's just how it is, right? Sometimes, like I wasn't even sure, to be a bit transparent here, I wasn't even sure that the TV would work this time for service. And it was only just before that we got it to work. So I'm really grateful for that right now, to circle back to gratitude. So I was just like, before service, I was kind of prepping for like, okay, how am I going to improvise if the TV doesn't work? Or like, how am I going to, but to be more at peace with that, like to be more accepting, okay, this is the way that things are right now. And I could catastrophize. I could panic. I could worry about it. But it really is much better for me to just find peace with things as they are, in this moment, with however chaotic it is, that this is the way things are, and I accept that, and now I will find a way to handle that in my own way.
Yeah, it's like the old English saying, keep calm and carry on.
Right.
If you just stay calm, even in a stormy, terrible situation, just imagine how much better you're gonna feel when you actually do get in a better situation. It'll only elevate your happiness even more. Because it's your misery and your happiness are infinitely scaling in both ways. So
right.
if you decide, I hate my life, I don't like anything in my life, I'm not grateful for anything, life sucks, it's going to suck, and it'll just keep, the more you feed yourself negative thoughts, the worse it's going to get.
Right.
And so, and it's, unfortunately, that's the natural state of mind. And so, you have to be aware and mindful of that and realize, oh, shoot, I need to stop my negative thinking.
I've said it before that even psychologically, the brain can become addicted to those chemicals associated with negative thoughts or with certain thought patterns. As it becomes more habitual, our brain is designed to make it easier for us to repeat patterns that are existing, So once we've formed a habit, whether it's a habit of thought or it's a habit of like action or whatever, then our brain makes it easier for us to repeat that habit again and again and again. In the same way, if you retrain your brain to think in different ways, to think more positively about things, to take things in their best interpretation, or to at the very least to be grateful for what you have, right? Then you can find a lot more peace. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I would say though that a lot of times, people find ways to cope with their suffering, and other, in various forms. A lot of times, involving a bad vice. And so whatever vice you want to choose, whatever substance you want to choose, a lot of times, we tell ourselves, well, I'm suffering in the now, so I'm going to numb it with whatever my bad habit of choice is.
Right.
And so we might feel good in the moment, but then inevitably it makes us feel worse later on.
Yeah.
And so it's like a spiritual credit card. I've, paid up front only for it to be worse later on.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you have to pay that back.
Right, and so it's hard because we use these coping mechanisms to deal with suffering, and it's never good. It really is never good, because in the long run it'll just make you worse off, because it will give you an addictive mindset where, oh, now I need this for my happiness. Then it becomes,
right.
Now I need this for normal functioning.
Mm-hmm. You start to associate it. It's similar to psychologically Pavlov's dogs. It's an associated stimulus. Like it's when I do this, I get this. And really, you stop noticing the negatives because you start to continuously put yourself in that state whenever you can, until the point where you can't. And then you suffer from the withdrawals. And withdrawal, it actually, even as a word, it fits with that credit card analogy you were making. You made a withdrawal, and now you're experiencing withdrawals. You're having to pay back what you took out.
Plus extra.
Plus extra. And so it's definitely important to build your coping mechanisms from things which are not limited in supply, such as that. Something that we can affect, something that we can change. We can change it like a habit, is our brain. And so much of our suffering, so much of our pain comes from the way that we take life, from the way that we understand our own life, from the way that from the story we tell ourselves. And again, if we tell ourselves we're miserable enough times, it becomes our reality. So it's important to tell ourselves a better story. All right.
And I think a lot of it boils down to, when we suffer, is because we've done things that's most easiest. So if it's a lot of times, people don't want to do what's harder, because it's difficult. It takes a lot of work and determination and endurance and perseverance. But for some people, that's very difficult, and they don't know they don't know how to do it. And so they accept what's easiest. And so, drifting off to negative thoughts or drifting off to a vice or a substance, that's all easier than trying to get to
Right.
the root of the problem.
And what's easy is always like following the same patterns. It's what's familiar.
Right.
The easiest thing possible is to continue to do what is familiar to you.
Right.
The hardest thing is to break your routines and to do something you've never done before, or to change yourself. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I think we've spoken on a lot of similar interconnected topics. Is there anything else that you want to share?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you. Namaste. Satnam to you all. I appreciate any of you who have joined us today, and I wish you all a wonderful week. Thank you. Until next time.